Hey, happy Monday, everybody. I'm kind of in a surly mood today. Just a real, kind of mood today. So I thought I would try and turn things around, try to be less grumpy, and what better tonic for what ails you than shitting on some really terrible, horrible album covers. So I think this is installment number 6. Been having fun doing these every week. Hopefully you've enjoyed watching them as well. This week, not going to have anything terribly shocking like we did last week, but they're still pretty bad album covers, and I love just tearing them apart. Hopefully you do too. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. A lot of people agree with me that these are some of the most despicable album covers ever. So let's get right into it. First album that I want to show is by the band Humble Pie, and it is their greatest hits album. Now, I don't know if the person who designed this album cover understood that Humble Pie is actually a figure of speech, because this is just a train wreck of an album cover. This is a repulsive album cover. Like, I like to have an album cover that I enjoy looking at, that is pleasing to the eye. This is in no way pleasing to the eye. This is a, for want of a better term, a fat housewife in a terry cloth pink bathrobe, curlers in her hair, and she's got pie. It looks like pie was just shoved in her face, down her mouth, in her gullet. It's just a mess. It's disgusting to look at. I can't imagine back in the day when you bought this album cover, throwing this on the turntable, sitting there casually enjoying the album artwork. Now, I like Pie, don't get me wrong, but looking at this album cover, I like Pie a lot less than I did before I saw this picture. So it's just in bad taste. I think we would call this in bad taste. It's not shocking. It's not offensive. I wonder if Humble Pie now, or who's ever left, certainly Steve Marriott is not, may he rest in peace. But just looking back on this, like, yeah, we probably misjudged this. Probably not. It stands out. I'm sure it stood out in the racks at the time for all the wrong reasons. But one of my least favorite, if I were record shopping and I was a huge Humble Pie fan, I would see this album cover and I wouldn't even want to buy it. If my top 10 favorite songs in the whole world were Humble Pie songs and they were all on this record, I still wouldn't buy it just on the cover alone, which seems counterintuitive. Like, put something that's nice to look at, or at least funny or clever. This is just in bad, really poor, shitty taste. The next album I'm going to show, we're going to go back into the world of hip-hop for an album by KEVO, MUNEY. Never heard of him. Probably, even if you're into hip-hop, you haven't heard of this guy. However, he is glossing himself Baby G.O.AT, G-O-A-T, which I assume means greatest of all time. Got a lot of moxie, this little baby goat, but this is his album cover for Baby G.O.AT. And I feel like this is real similar to the hip-hop album that we showed last week. Again, I understand GOAT is the acronym for greatest of all time. And I'm sure if you had to show a GOAT to drive the point home, you could have picked some way more clever, less offensive images than a real goat giving birth to a grown-ass man. Now, I never grew up on a farm. I've never seen a goat give birth before. I'm pretty sure goats, unlike humans, do not wear surgical gowns or give birth on examination tables that humans do. Like, what are you... Seriously, what are you going for with this picture? You can say, I am the greatest of all time, without depicting yourself coming out of a goat's vagina. And you can't tell me after this record or this CD hit the store shelves and this guy's passing it around to all his friends that they aren't sitting back and giggling like, hoo, 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 Yo mama was a goat. Yo daddy had relations with a goat. Ha 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 ha. So I'm sure that the reaction was very swift and very brutal from Baby Goat's friends, as it ought to be. What are you doing, Baby Goat? Personally, I don't care to debate whether this guy is the GOAT, greatest of all time. Personally, I feel that rap is C-R-A-P and G-A-R-B-A-G-E, or at least most of it. So I'm the wrong person to ask if this guy has any talent or if he is head and shoulders above his peers in the hip-hop community. All I can tell you is that this cover is an embarrassment, and he should be ashamed of himself. All right, the final album I'm going to show is going to be on the polar opposite end of the musical spectrum. I'm going to talk a little classic country, going to talk some George Jones. Yes, if you're familiar with any of George Jones' album covers, he has some pretty terrible ones. And there were, in fact, two. I couldn't decide between the two, so I'm going to show both of them. The first one I'm going to show is his album, Alone Again. Now, George Jones at this point in his career was struggling with substance abuse. I think he was getting into cocaine. He had an alcohol problem, was making some bad career decisions. I think he had some performances that were canceled. So his career was kind of going off the rails for these next two albums. But I want to show the first one, Alone Again. Poor George Jones sitting alone in a cafe, in a booth by himself. I'm alone again. Now, I respect George Jones as a country artist. I'm not here to speak ill of the man, but this album cover just strikes me as kind of silly, a little pathetic. I mean, it captures the, I guess, title of the album pretty well, but I don't know. I just got to crack a little bit of a smile, kind of roll my eyes at poor George sitting there forlorn in his booth all by himself. Now, we are talking George Jones here, so I'm sure however he ended up in this circumstance where he's sitting alone in a booth by himself was probably of his own making, probably had something to do with his raging alcoholism or his cocaine addiction. I think Tammy Wynette had probably left him at this point. She got tired of his shit. So I can't feel too sorry for George in spite of how pathetic he looks sitting there all by himself. But the next one also, I had to pick another one, and I saw this one. It made me giggle like a little schoolgirl when I saw this one too. This is his album, I Want to Sing. I Want to Sing. Now, it's not 4 words. It's not, title's not 4 words. It's I Want to, W-A-N-T-A, sing. And I'm going to sing, goddammit. But yeah, I like this image of just his big old head on the front of the train as it's steaming down the track. Big old George head, coming through. Yeah, you know, it's not offensive. To me, it's just silly. It's one of those album covers where I'm sure it seemed great at the time, but then in retrospect, it's really just silly. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm sure George, looking back on it now, was like, yeah, if I had to do it again, I'd pick a different album cover. Definitely one I'd like to have back. I'm sure he would tell you. Is George Jones still alive? I don't know. I'm not a country fan, so I couldn't tell you. But if he was alive, I'm sure he would look back and probably want a do-over on this one. Oh, anyway, just had a little fun with it. Hope you are having a great day. Went a little long today, but anyway, you have brightened my mood. See, I got a smile on my face now. My heart is lighter. So thank you, VC. You do it to me every time. Have yourselves a great day and keep on the lookout for bad albums. If there's any that you want to suggest that I do in future episodes, definitely let me know. Always happy to stumble on some new and terrible covers. Take care.